This program contains scenes that have been dramatized, with special attention given to historical accuracy.
One man.
Triple up and deal.
Way out of his league.
I was considered dead money.
Jim, you're an amateur.
He risks everything for a dream.
I just want to taste it just once.
You're out of your mind.
To play the biggest poker tournament in the world.
The World Series is the granddaddy of all poker tournaments.
And take down the world's best player.
I come to these tournaments to win.
In a high-stakes battle to rake in the chips.
He was the average Joe who took a shot.
For the ultimate prize in poker. When you're playing in the biggest poker tournament in the world, don't let your opponents intimidate you.
I'll call.
Whatever you do, maintain your poker face.
Raise.
Cloutier with a $5,000 raise.
Flinch,
Call it.
and you're dead.
McManus calls.
The card shark is circling. And if you falter, he'll go for blood.
I'm all in.
TJ Cloutier is all in, and everything comes down to this.
The Chicago suburbs, Illinois. Jim McManus is a stressed-out 48-year-old trying to make ends meet.
In 1999, I was a full-time novelist and a full-time teacher.
He's on his second marriage and has a growing family.
I had recently become a father for the fourth time.
Wife Jennifer is concerned for their family's well-being.
He was just earning his teaching salary, basically, with a few writing jobs, freelance jobs on the side. It wasn't the best of financial situations.
In December, Jim gets a surprising offer from Harper's magazine, one of the most prestigious publications in the country.
To write a cover story for Harper's was any writer's dream. The editor was interested in me writing a piece about high-stakes gambling. His first idea was that I would do bridge, cover a high-stakes bridge tournament.
According to the most recent unemployment rose by 6%.
So?
Well, it's a real opportunity, you know. It's a serious magazine. Be a great clipping.
Well, that's great. What do you know about bridge?
Absolutely nothing. That's what I got. Nothing. You turn this up.
The 31st annual World Series of Poker is coming. See the greatest poker players in the world facing off on the final table, May 18th, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 Central.
Jim is inspired. Why not write about the World Series of Poker, the biggest poker event on the planet?
That's a good idea.
Held since 1970 at the Horseshoe Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, the World Series of Poker attracts the best poker players from around the world.
The World Series of Poker is very prestigious, and it is the grandfather of all the big tournaments.
Not only is there a lot of money at stake in the main event of the World Series, there's the title of world champion, and that's important to everybody.
Professional poker tournaments and their million-dollar prizes are a recent phenomenon. The game got its start in America in the 1830s with the French settlers in New Orleans. It spread north via the Mississippi riverboats, then quickly became part of the lore of the Wild West. But the real revolution came only recently, when filmmaker Steve Lipscomb trained a lipstick camera on the cards, turning poker into a spectator sport.
The invention of the camera in the table that allowed the audience to see the player's cards turned it into riveting theater.
Today, millions of Americans watch poker tournaments unfold hand by hand on television. And no poker competition scores higher ratings than the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas. Jim is sure he stumbled on a great idea. Poker is a game he's always loved.
I had been playing poker since I was 9. Games that you grow up with tend to be the ones that work their way deepest into your cell structure and your psychology. You love them the longest and the best.
And then it hits him. What if he entered the poker tournament himself? What if he played the World Series? Then he'd get a real insider's look.
I wanted to write a magazine article about it, and I wanted to play in the tournament.
There's only one problem.
I had zero experience. I'd never played any poker tournament before.
What's more, the fee just for entering the tournament, known as the buy-in, is a whopping $10,000. Jim's advance for the Harper's article is only $4,000, money he'd like to put towards entering the tournament.
You're going to what?
The poker competition.
In Las Vegas. Jim, you're an amateur.
She had zero hesitation in letting me know how she felt.
I'm a talented amateur. I play poker.
It was a completely impulsive, irresponsible move on his part.
Jim.
We need the money for the house. We need the money for preschool education. $4,000 is not a small amount of money to us.
Look, I gotta do this.
Why?
Because I just want to taste it just once.
He gets on these rolls with something that he becomes physically, emotionally, intellectually invested in.
She wanted me to be happy, and she wanted to protect the household budget at the same time, and she was in a tricky spot.
I want to be...
In the end, Jim's wife concedes.
He felt so passionate about it that to say no to him would be much more costly than losing the $4,000.
I was damned if I was going to go out there and not give it a shot.
There are 4 months left until the World Series of Poker begins. Jim McManus goes into intense training, preparing for the competition of a lifetime. Day after day, night after night, he practices competing in virtual tournaments on his computer.
Wilson Software creates characters which play against you at a very high level, and they are fairly tough players. And I was able to simulate the World Series of Poker and play the tournament every night.
The goal in a poker tournament is to be the last man standing. The man with the chips.
That's the idea. In a poker tournament, you're trying to last as long as possible, and the only way to do that is by accumulating chips.
Your chips are your lifeline, and if you run out of chips, you've run out of money. You're out of that tournament.
To win chips, you must have the best hand at the table. Or, and this is the key to winning poker, you must act like you do.
Deception is part of poker. At some point, you have to risk all of your chips on what you think is the best hand, or you have to risk all of your chips on a bluff, knowing it's a bluff.
Playing on a computer is all very well, but poker is about the other players. It's about psychology. And in the end, it almost doesn't matter what cards you have, it's what cards you make them think you have. You have to scare them off the table.
Poker legitimizes duplicity. If you are a better liar about the strength of your hand than your opponents, you will tend to win money.
If Jim is to have any chance against them, he will need to get inside their heads. Jim turns to a legendary poker manual, written by his idol, Cloutier, one of the game's all-time greats.
He wrote a book which I studied to the point of memorization. Basically, the advice of that book is to wait until you are dealt good. Be patient. Wait until you have good opportunities. And wait until you have strong enough cards to attack.
Jim spends hours with Cloutier's book.
TJ was my mentor as a strategist in how to approach a high-stakes tournament.
Jim will need all the help he can get. Jim McManus arrives in Las Vegas.
To go out to Las Vegas as a Harper's Magazine correspondent to play in the World Series of Poker was a dream come true.
He's excited to finally be there, but he's also nervous about the competition ahead.
Hi, I'm checking in. Jim McManus.
Are you here to compete?
Yes. Actually, funny thing is I'm actually a writer. I'm here to do a story.
It's TJ Cloutier.
TJ, man, you rock on the World Poker Tour.
Jim's idol is playing in the tournament.
He's scary as hell, and he knows how to play. So that's a lethal combination.
Jim McManus, professional writer and rank amateur poker player, is putting everything on the line. His money, his career, even his marriage, for the opportunity to play in a poker tournament with the likes of TJ Cloutier, the guy who wrote the book on how to dominate the game of poker. Writer Jim McManus is set to cover the World Series of Poker for Harper's Magazine. He wants to get an inside look at the biggest poker competition in the world and then capture that frenzy on the page. But that's not all Jim is planning.
My goal was to be able to sit down and play in the championship event of the World Series of Poker.
I was a little bit nervous about him deciding that in addition to being a writer, he was going to be a high-stakes poker player.
Jim believes that if he can survive long enough to play even a few hands against the top players, he'll have a hit story on his hands. As Jim McManus arrives in Vegas, the reality of what he's up against hits him.
Hey, TJ!
It's TJ Cloutier, Jim's idol and poker's most feared player. The champion has arrived to stake yet another claim to the World Series.
Man, you rock on the World Poker Tour.
Well, thank you.
No, I mean, I've studied everything.
I had won more tournaments than anybody had. I won 57 major tournaments, and nobody's close, and that's what I do.
Any advice? I'm just starting out.
Bold or raise, buddy, just like I say in my book. In fact, you should buy my book.
I did, but I'll buy another one.
Very good. Take care.
What am I even doing here? Oh, I remember. I'm throwing away a lot of money I can't afford.
I'm sorry. Your name again?
McManus. Jim.
Jim faces an even more immediate challenge. Right now, he has to find a way into the World Series. The tournament entry fee is $10,000, and Jim doesn't have that kind of money. He only has a $4,000 advance for the article he's going to write. But there is one other way to enter the tournament.
You have to win the smaller satellite tournament, and then you're entered into the bigger tournament.
If Jim can beat the players in an early satellite round, he can make it to the main event without having to put down 10 grand. It's his only chance. As Jim McManus takes his seat for the grueling competition ahead, he's nervous.
I consider myself a heavy underdog. Most of the players at the table have much more experience than I do.
To win the satellite, Jim will have to outlast every player seated at the table. TJ Cloutier is not at the table, but Hassan Habib is, and he's known as one of the best players in the game.
He has, over time, become an excellent, excellent player, someone who is feared at the table.
In order to make it into the World Series, Jim must oust Hassan from the satellite.
You know what would be nice? I keep this at the table next to me. I mean, funny thing is, there's not even a rule that says you can't, but you look like a total schmo if you did, and nobody wants to look like a schmo at the table. It's too bad because I could really use the help.
The brand of poker played at the World Series is no-limit Texas Hold'em. This is high-stakes poker, where how much you bet is only limited by your boldness and the size of your bankroll. The name comes from an old poker expression, hold 'em or fold 'em. Here's how it works. Everyone gets 2 cards face down from the dealer. These are your cards and yours only. As soon as it's your turn, you have to make an immediate decision.
You get your 2 cards, you decide whether to stay in or not.
If you get good cards, you stick around to play the hand. If you get bad cards, you fold and sit out the hand. In other words, hold them or fold them. All other cards are dealt face up on the table in 3 stages. These are the community cards, used by all players to build a hand. In the first stage, the dealer turns up 3 cards together, a trio known as the flop. The second stage brings a 4th card, known as the turn. In stage 3, the 5th and final card appears.
The last card is called either 5th Street or the river card.
At each stage, there is an opportunity to either bet, fold, or check. In No Limit Texas Hold'em, you can also go all in at any time, which means betting all your chips at once. The other players must either fold or match the bet.
People enjoy No Limit Texas Hold'em because they have the opportunity to go all in. That is, put all their chips in the pot. That adds a moment of terror to the game and is very exciting.
Jim McManus must start accumulating chips immediately if he wants to have any chance of winning this satellite.
Shuffle up and deal.
Jim starts out badly. Hassan Habib picks off several players and quickly takes control of the game. Jim struggles to penetrate Hassan's poker face.
What's he thinking? Especially about what I think about what he's thinking.
The way that you can get a read on the strength of your opponent's hand is through facial expressions, voice, betting patterns, and body language.
But Hassan Habib is a complete blank. On his next hand, Jim gets strong cards.
A pair of queens is either the 3rd or 4th best hand.
Queens is a very, very good hand. I would be happy to have queens, of course, unless you're up against kings or aces.
Jim's queens put him in a great position to bring down Hassan Habib.
Look, if I'm gonna qualify for this tournament, I gotta start showing some courage. Just hope he doesn't have any aces or kings.
McManus goes all in. He's ready to stake the whole satellite on this hand.
All in.
Gutsy move by newcomer Jim McManus.
Hassan matches Jim's bet.
I call.
If Jim loses this hand, his dream of playing the World Series will be over.
Cards, gentlemen, please.
Jim has the pair, but if Hassan scores another king, he will beat Jim.
There are 5 cards, community cards, to be dealt. If one of them is a king, I lose.
All right, dealer, let's see the flop. Flop comes 9 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, jack of spades.
There's no king for Hassan, but there are 2 diamond cards on the table.
The numbers are against me. All he needs is a diamond to get a flush, or he needs a king to beat my queens. And he has the turn, and the river cards to get him in.
Let's see the turn.
As the dealer turns over the fourth card, Jim is terrified. There is no king and no diamond. Jim's hand is safe, but there's one more card to go.
And the river.
Hassan's king and 8 can't beat Jim's queens.
Winner! Winner on table 64. McManus is the winner. He goes on to the competition round.
It was a nice bet. Well done.
Jim is thrilled. The professional rider has beaten a major player and won a place in the World Series. To celebrate, he buys a $2,500 ring for his wife.
I was paying back Jennifer for her patience with me over the years and the fact that she had let me go out there to begin with.
It's a reckless move. Between the $1,000 satellite fee and the ring, Jim is down to his last $500. But that doesn't stop the rider from getting an insider's look at another quintessential Vegas experience.
There's a term, the full Vegas package, in which is gambling, sex, and drugs. And that's what I was experiencing over the course of 1 week.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I just won over at the poker competition.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. I was looking for someone to celebrate with.
Oh, well, you came to the right place. How about a dance?
I don't get money.
Well, I thought you just said you wanted a poker competition.
Well, I did. I qualified.
Oh. Well, this place is like a poker game. If you want to play, you got to pay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thanks.
Jim's moment of triumph quickly turns to despair. All he's done is qualify to go up against 500 more experienced players, with his chances of winning any money at all practically non-existent. Jim McManus has been hired by Harper's magazine to write an article on the World Series of Poker. But McManus, an amateur poker player, has taken his $4,000 advance and used it to enter the tournament himself.
I was terrified, but I was happy to be there.
McManus is risking more than most of the players around him. Between expenses and the entry fee, he's nearly broke and desperately needs to finish in the money.
It was potentially worth $1 million.
Jim has good reason to be terrified. He's going into battle against the world's best poker players, and his chances of actually winning a penny are slim to none. It's a chaotic scene at the Binion Horseshoe Casino in Las Vegas as the 31st annual World Series of Poker kicks off. This year marks a record number of entrants.
We ended up with 512, which was a jaw-dropping number.
And a record payout.
It meant that the prize pool was going to be $5.2 million, by far the biggest prize pool ever.
Shuffle up and deal.
Jim wins his first hand.
I had a good start. For about a minute and 45 seconds, I was the chip leader.
But that's as good as it gets.
Things quickly went south. I had been studying and setting up my strategy for the last 2 or 3 months, and because of my nerves, it all went out the window.
Jim loses hand after hand after hand.
Within less than 2 hours, I had lost almost 75% of my chips.
He's just begun and already close to being knocked out.
At least half of the players get eliminated on the first day.
When the players take a break, Jim calls home.
Hey, it's me. Yeah. No, it's a disaster. No, my mom, I'm down to like $2,200.
I could tell that he was on edge, and so that had a lot to do with me saying, relax.
Honey, calm down. You can do this.
First and foremost, you are a writer. And if you're not a poker player this time around, then so be it.
Oh, maybe you're just being too aggressive. Just get ahead of myself.
He was pissed. He was mad at himself.
You can work your way back, Jim. You still have more than $2,000.
Jen, come on. You know how small bank $2,000 is, huh? I mean, you have any idea? No, you don't. The problem is, I'm playing like an amateur. No, the real problem is, I am an amateur.
Jim McManus heads back to the poker table, acutely aware of his shrinking stack of chips. And the odds are against him. Many hours into the night, and somehow McManus continues to hang on.
You have so much adrenaline running through you that you don't feel at all tired. I could not have been more focused.
Winning hand by hand, McManus slowly regains his ground. When the day finally comes to a close, more than half the players who started out that morning have been eliminated. Jim McManus has survived the bloodbath, for now.
He was not a professional poker player. He was the average Joe who had some poker knowledge.
But the chip sitting in front of him won't be worth anything unless Jim finishes in the money. To do that, he'll have to survive the second day of competition when over 150 additional players will be eliminated.
We're going to play down to 45 players. If I do that, I've won $15,000. So that is what I want and need to do.
Even if he ends the day 46th, one spot away from the money, he'll return home a loser.
That's called the bubble boy. The bubble boy is the worst place, much worse to finish 46th than it is to finish 446th.
Jim will have to play his gutsiest poker to avoid this fate. As Jim knocks out one player after another, his pile of chips and his confidence grows.
That's it this time around for Danny Rollins. Well played, Danny. We'll see you next year.
But Jim's self-assurance disappears in a single moment when another player joins the table.
He's one of the last people that you want to see. You do not want to be involved in pots against him. You want to survive.
It's TJ Cloutier, Jim's mentor, his idol, and the best tournament player there is in professional poker. Jim McManus, a professional writer and amateur poker player, has defied the odds to reach the second round of the biggest and most important poker tournament in the world.
That I felt like I had been born to go play in this tournament.
But now his dream is in jeopardy. TJ Cloutier, a champion player and winner of more than 50 tournaments, is assigned to Jim's table.
Okay, this is bad. I'm gonna lose. I want to go home.
It's high noon for Jim. He is petrified at the prospect of playing this legend.
When you sit down at the table with TJ Cloutier, you are up against somebody who has seen it all.
TJ Cloutier is a human bridge to poker's illicit past.
You couldn't play Texas Hold'em when I was a young man. It was against the law.
He was one of the last of the original Texas road gamblers.
Well, we used to go from town to town. We used to call fading the white line.
The games were all illegal. They were held in somebody's house, in a hotel room, in the back room of a bar, wherever they could find the game.
Over the years, this former football pro turned poker pro developed a style all his own and a reputation as a player you don't want to mess with.
He's the kind of player who's going to take advantage of people not wanting to get eliminated. The worst way that you can play No Limit Hold'em is to fear losing.
But that's exactly what Jim fears. He's petrified of the man across from him.
It was pretty cool to watch because it really was representative of two different spectrums of poker. You had the professional poker player versus the amateur writer. It was thrilling.
McManus has an ace-jack, a decent hand.
I'll call.
One by one, the other players fold.
Raise.
Cloutier with a $5,000 raise.
TJ's raise forces the remaining players out. It's down to Jim. McManus freezes in fear. Strategy says he should get out now.
You really shouldn't call on a big bet like that. You see, you should fold or raise, and that's it. I mean, it's right there in TJ's book. For God's sakes, you fold or you raise. You fold or raise. You fold or you raise. Call it.
McManus matches TJ's raise.
He understands that I'm a novice and is likely to want to push me off a hand without having a particularly strong hand of his own. So I call him with the ace-jack.
So what if it makes me look like an amateur? If it throws off his game rhythm, then it's worth it.
The two men wait for the flop.
And the flop comes 6 of hearts, ace of diamonds, 9 of clubs.
Jim has flopped 2 aces, putting him in a great position to win the hand. But Cloutier shows no sign of backing down. The champion glares at McManus.
He's a former football player, and when he stares at you, you know you're being stared at.
6'5", 270, he's a huge guy. The fact that he is capable of reaching across the table and snapping your neck affects the way you play hands against him.
Jim has a good hand, but it's possible he's up against a better hand he doesn't know at this point.
McManus swallows his fear and bets.
I'm all in.
TJ Cloutier is all in. Everything is on the line.
Either TJ has a great hand or he's trying to scare McManus off the table. Both players have everything on the line.
It's more like confronting a volcano or a dragon than a regular person.
And anytime you get all your money in, it's your poker life at stake.
Call.
This is a key situation for both TJ and for Jim.
Cards, gentlemen, please. Both players have a pair of aces.
Jim has ace-jack. TJ has ace-10. The ace in the flop gives both men a pair of aces. But Jim's second card, the jack, gives him the edge over TJ's 10.
McManus has the best kicker with the jack.
Everything now depends on the last 2 cards, the turn and the river.
Let's see the turn.
The turn brings a second 9.
2 pairs, 9s and aces. McManus still has the best kicker with that jack.
Only if the river brings a 10 can McManus lose the hand.
Looks like McManus is going to knock out Cloutier with a single card.
Well, he had me on the ropes. I'm looking for an ace, a king, a queen, or a 10 to come.
He knew he was gone. I mean, he knew that he was a gone goose, as TJ himself would say.
I probably shouldn't have been in this situation, but what am I going to do? I mean, it's here.
Let's see the river. 9. River comes 9. Both players. Full house. That kicker does nothing.
It's a stalemate. Both players have 2 aces and 3 nines.
It's a split pot. Split pot.
We split the pot in half. In effect, TJ sucks out against me.
The river has saved TJ.
I think it's the only time during the whole tournament where I had all my money in there where I could have got broke.
But by the end of play on day 3, McManus has increased his level of chips to an incredible 276,000.
By this point, I'm in a state of shock.
The little-known writer is now the sensation of the tournament.
Jim was the focus of everyone's attention because his story was so cool.
So, how does it feel to give the master a run for his money?
Actually, I'm kind of stunned. I'm just trying to keep up with DJ. And I'm still here and I'm still playing, you know?
I begin the tournament as a reporter, and now the reporters are reporting on my action.
Somehow, Jim has survived day 3 of the tournament and a direct encounter with TJ Cloutier. Is this thanks to blind luck? Or is McManus the real thing? A world-class poker player who still has to prove himself by bringing down the Goliath of high-stakes poker. All eyes are on professional writer Jim McManus, the amateur who's entered the World Series of Poker on a lark and is now set to compete for the $1.5 million first prize.
Jim is ecstatic. He cannot, I don't think even he could believe what was happening to him.
Now there's a chance he could actually win the tournament.
I'm within striking distance of the 1.5 million.
McManus will start play with chips representing $276,000. An excellent position from which to assault the top players in the game.
I'd always dreamed about being able to bully my opponents in a big no-limit hold'em tournament.
But McManus soon skids into a ditch. His chip level plummets to under $100,000. That's a precariously low amount for this stage of the game.
The optimism I was feeling as the day 3 began had completely disappeared.
What's worse, once again, McManus must soon face his most serious rival, poker great TJ Cloutier.
It's like the professor and the student playing against each other.
McManus's cards are Ace of Hearts and King of Spades, one of the best hands in the game.
Ace, King, big, slick.
Buoyed by the strength of his hand, McManus bets.
McManus starts the action with 50,000.
The bet scares everyone away, except for TJ.
Well, that's a quick retreat from McManus's money. It leaves only TJ Cloutier. He's not one to walk away from this sort of question mark.
McManus is sure he has the best hand. But TJ more than doubles Jim's bet.
Raise 100,000.
TJ Cloutier raises to 100,000. That means McManus is going to have to triple his own bet if he wants to stay in.
Oh, shoot. Is it me, or does he, like, snarl every time he does that?
McManus agonizes. Should he get out of the hand? Could TJ be bluffing? What would TJ do in this position?
What does TJ do when he has ace, king in the pocket and he gets raised? Well, in this case, it was TJ who raised me, so the smart thing to do with him was just to get out. Yeah, fold, and that's the smart thing to do.
But Jim doesn't fold. He's determined to stay with TJ.
Call.
McManus matches TJ's raise.
The two men now wait for the flop's 3 cards.
All right, dealer, let's see the flop. Flop comes 4 of diamonds, 5 of hearts, deuce of clubs.
There is nothing in the flop that can help Jim.
I'm acting first. I'm out of position. Whoever bets last has position. TJ's got position on me. I check because I flop nothing.
Now it's up to TJ.
200,000.
I raised him. I tried to take the pot away from him right there.
Jim can't believe it.
TJ's $200,000 bet indicates that he could have a very, very strong hand, and he could be bluffing.
Okay, in his book, TJ says, if you have an ace-king and 3 babies on the table, you get rid of your hand. If he knows that I read his book, he'll assume that I'm gonna chase.
He bets 200,000. I feel that he has an ace that is weaker than mine, so I call. I'm ignoring the advice that I assume that he assumes I'm going to follow.
Everything now depends on the remaining cards.
All right, dealer, show me the turn. Turn comes 7 of diamonds.
The turn card is no help to McManus's ace-king. Jim is running out of options.
I knew what hand he had. I knew he had ace-king, and I knew that he couldn't beat 2 deuces.
I'm all in.
TJ's all in for a pot of about 700,000.
Oh my God, what does he have? Everybody wanted to see. This was probably the biggest pot of the tournament.
This is crazy. There's $750,000 in that pot, right? And if he has even just a pair of 2s, he's got me beat. So how can I possibly bet almost $1 million on a hand that has nothing?
If Jim loses the hand, he is going to be eliminated.
If Jim folds, he will lose more than $300,000 he's already put in the pot.
Call it.
Just didn't hesitate, and he called right away. It was a fantastic call.
The betting is over. All that's left is for the 2 opponents to reveal their cards.
Cards, gentlemen, please.
It's an agonizing moment.
Jim's whole tournament is on the line here.
If I lose this hand, my tournament life is over.
Jim has ace-king. TJ has ace-9. Jim was right. TJ has been bluffing.
I was just bluffing. I mean, I was flat bluffing.
Neither player has more than a draw. McManus has an edge with an ace-king over Cloutier's ace-9. See the river. River comes jack of clubs. Jim McManus wins the hand, 866,000 in chips. Jim McManus is your new chip leader.
He jumped up, he was screaming, he was so happy. It was wonderful to see.
I'm now winning the World Series of Poker. I am now the closest person to the $1.5 million first prize.
Jim McManus is now the chip leader in the World Series of Poker. For the moment, no one can touch him.
This dream could come true for Jim. He's the chip leader now. He is at the top of his game. It's like he's transformed himself into a professional poker player.
That was the most alive I had ever felt.
But all good things come to an end. The next day, at the final table of the most important poker event in the world, Jim's luck finally runs out on the turn of a river card.
You can make all the right plays. You can get 2 kings and be up against 2 4s and have a 4 come, and there's nothing you can do about it. He went all the way to 5th place, an incredible feat.
But finishing 5th out of a field of over 500 turns McManus into a poker legend. The rank amateur who comes out of nowhere and goes home with $250,000 in prize money.
And that, so far, is the highlight of my poker life.
Jim McManus beat the odds. An amateur who fought his way to the top. He risked everything to play against the world's most formidable poker players. And went home a winner.